Greetings, my peeps, and welcome to the All Things Basketball Podcast with your boy GD. In this episode, we will finish the 2026 NBA draft. We'll do the rest of the 15 teams. We'll go through it all, so you know how I do it. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Okay, guys, it's your boy GD back with the All Things Basketball with GD podcast. And guys, I gave you the first 15 teams in this 2026 NBA draft, a draft that, as I said in the previous episode, a draft that I was pretty much glued to. It was that much excitement, guys. And just to recap what I said before, that first round, you had a run on freshmen, 8 straight with the first 8 picks until Dallas broke the cycle at pick number 9. And then in the second round, you had all the teams picking. Those weren't their original picks outside of Toronto. Toronto was the only team that had their original pick when it was time for them to pick in that round. So a lot of player movement, a lot of moving and shaking, but nonetheless, again, pretty good draft. So we will cover it all, guys. Now, we ended off the last episode with the Memphis Grizzlies. So now we turn our attention to the Miami Heat. Now, the Miami Heat, they did undergo a facelift, guys. You bring in Giannis Antetokounmpo from the Milwaukee Bucks, and you add him to what you already have in a Bam Adebayo, and everybody's going crazy now over this. Here's what I'll say: you're gonna need more than this, because in the trade, you got rid of guys like Tyler Hero. You got rid of a Jaime Jaquez Jr. You got rid of a promising young big in Khalil Ware. So, yeah. So you lost some pieces, and now you're going to have to replenish it. But we'll see what happens, what moves they'll make. But in terms of the draft, they did have a pick at pick 37. And they choose Ryan Conwell, a guard out of Louisville. He was a senior, 6'2", 215 pounds. Now, he could be a 3-level scorer in the league. That's the kind of offense he has. And it's much needed because, remember, Tyler Hero goes out the door. So you're going to need a guard coming in that can give you some offense, and this guy can do that. In the comparison, he reminds you of a shorter version of Donovan Mitchell, who, oh, by the way, was also a guard coming out of Louisville. So he'll be joining Bam Adebayo, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Bobby Portis Jr., Davion Mitchell, and the rest. And so Eric Spoelstra, he's going to have his hands full now. He's got to mold the squad together. He's going to need some guards, that's for sure. So we'll see what moves are on the horizon, but major shakeup as far as that goes. Conwell seems like he'll be in the rotation early for the Miami Heat. Next team I'll talk about, in fact, the team that Giannis came from, the Milwaukee Bucks, guys. Now, they got those players in return. And in this draft, they had 2 lottery picks, guys. At pick number 10, they take Braden Burries out of the University of Arizona, a freshman, 6'4", 215 pounds, guys. This guy is a leader. He's a guy who impacts winning. He already has a pro-ready skill set, guys. but he's not necessarily a primary ball handler. So he'll be a secondary guy off the ball. If need be, he can be on the ball for a spell or two. And he reminds you of a Drew Holiday. Now, if you follow Drew Holiday's career, he started off the ball and eventually became a guy that was on the ball. So there you go there. But Brandon Burries, your number 10 pick. And then at number 13, Nate Ahmed out of the University of Tennessee, also a freshman, 6'10", 211 pounds. So very lean. He's a guy with top 10 upside, guys. Top 10 potential. He's skilled, physical, but he needs to add a little more bulk. And he actually reminds you of a guy who was just traded, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Remember, he was a string bean coming into the league. He got on a weight training program and became the man you see today. So can Nate do the same thing? Sure, it's possible. So I thought Milwaukee did nice, all things considered. You know, they're going to be, I would say a rebuild, but a reimagining. I think I'd say that. And these two young players will be joining Tyler Hero, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Miles Turner, who's, remember, they got him in the offseason last season. And then Kel'el Ware. Remember, two guys. Out was Doc Rivers, in comes Taylor Jenkins. I think Taylor Jenkins will do fine over here, remolding this squad here. All right, guys, so let us continue. The Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, this is another team that has made major moves prior to the draft. Well, actually, one prior, one during. So the Timberwolves, they move on from Julius Randle, and then a couple of days later, they trade Naz Reid, but in return, they get a LaMelo Ball from the Charlotte Hornets. Now, guys, everybody's drooling all over themselves, thinking about the backcourt of LaMelo and Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards. I mean, on paper, it looks really nice. But my thing is, you lost size when you traded those guys. So the Western Conference is a beast. Now you got Wemby there, who's you're going to have to be able to contain him. Rudy Gobert will not fit the bill. You're going to need other guys as well. And then you got OKC with their two-headed monster of Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein. And then there's the issue with LaMelo Ball's health. Last year was probably his healthiest since he's been in the league, to be honest with you. So will he be there for the playoff wars in April, in May, possibly June if you go that far? I don't know. Given his history, I don't know. So this is a huge risk for the Timberwolves. All right, let's talk about their draft. They actually did pretty decent in the draft. Not having a first round pick, their pick at 33 in the second round that they got from Brooklyn, thanks to the Julius Randle trade. They get Isaiah Evans out of Duke, a sophomore, 6'6", 186 pounds. Now, this is a three-level scorer who falls to the second round. He's supposed to be mid to late first round, but he falls into the second round. So pretty good get for them. And I think he's an immediate rotation guy. You add him to the mix with LaMelo, with Ant-Man, with Oyo Dusumu, who they just re-upped his contract. So you're pretty strong at the guard position over there. And this guy fits the bill. And he reminds you of a guy who's actually on the shelf for them. He tore up his knee in the playoffs. And that's Dante DiVincenzo. He has that kind of game where he has the deep ball. He can drive to the lane, all those different things, and give you defense as well. So nice get for the Timberwolves, given the way they drafted him at. And then the second from the last pick at 59, one that they get from San Antonio via the Indiana Pacers, Trey Kaufman-Renn, a senior forward out of Purdue University. Now, he's a guy, a wide body with a nice touch around the rim. He's a lunch pail guy. He puts on his hard hat and comes to work, does the dirty work, does what you need there. Reminds you of a Bo Outlaw. Again, I believe I mentioned him in the previous episode, a player comparing to him. So, guys, go look up Bo Outlaw, and then you'll know who I'm talking about. All right, guys, so that's the Timberwolves. Let us continue. The New Orleans Pelicans. Now, this is a team, did not have a first-round pick. Their pick is pick 58, guys, which came through a litany of avenues, guys. But the pick, Deron Pierre Jr., guys, a wingman out of SMU, senior, 6'5", 200 pounds. Another guy who's a 3-level scorer. But he needs to tighten up his defense, guys. And he reminds you of a Willie Barton or Will Barton, guy who played many years for the Denver Nuggets. So you add him to the mix. You already got guys like DeJounte Murray, provided they hold on to him. You got guys like Trey Murphy III. You also have Jeremy Fears there, Derek Queen as well. So nice young team. We'll see if Deron Pierre Jr. is able to squeeze into that rotation there. All right, that's the Pelicans as far as that goes. And then, I can't believe I'm saying the world champion, New York Knicks. And what they did in the draft, they moved around a bit. They came into this draft with a first-round pick and then 2 second-rounders. But, of course, given what the owner said, Jim Dolan, he doesn't want to go into the second apron. So you knew coming into this, he didn't want to grab a first-rounder because when you do that, you're slotted to a salary that you have to pay him. And he doesn't want to do that. He prefers to go the second-round route where he could give a guy a 2-way contract and save some money. So that's his mindset these days. And actually, that's what Leon Rose has been doing these past few drafts, to be honest with you. So, with that said, the Knicks do end up with the 2 second-rounders, not at their original positions. They moved around a bit, adding more second-rounders for the future and some cash considerations, like Dolan is strapped for cash, but I digress. Anyhow, so with pick 39, that again got from several avenues, Jack Khalil, a guard coming out of Germany, guys. He's 6'4", 183 pounds. He's a combo guard with international experience. And I was watching Knick Fan TV the night that after this second round was over, those guys came on. Alex and I forget the other guy that was on there. It wasn't CP the franchise. It was someone else. And they were talking about these 2 guys. And they basically said this is a guy with untapped potential. Sky could be the limit for this kid. And from what I understand, he's not going to be a draft and stash guy, a guy that will continue playing in Germany. He's coming over to play in the summer league, so you're going to get a glimpse of him in summer leagues. He reminds you of a Jalen Suggs of the Orlando Magic. So that's the type of game he has, guys. Well, that's what they're saying. And then at the 47th pick, they get Tyler Nickel, guys, out of Vanderbilt. He's a senior, 6'6", 217 pounds, a wing with consistent three-point ability, guys. And I think he's an insurance policy just in case we lose Landry Shamet. I think he's a guy who can, if you develop him properly, he can provide you that deep ball that Landry Shamet gave you. Can he defend like Shamet does? That remains to be seen. He reminds you of Sam Merrill, a player who's actually with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, yet another guy we'll see in the summer league. So we'll get to take a glance at what he can do there. So he'll be joining a championship ball club, like I said, Captain Clutch, Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, under contract, Tyler Kolek, Deuce McBride. They just re-signed Mohamed Diawara. I was applauding that. We needed this guy back. He showed so much promise this past season. And word just came down. Jose Alvarado, he did opt out of his player option only to get a longer deal, a 3-year deal, just a shade under $15 million from the early numbers I'm hearing. So Grand Theft Alvarado stays with the New York Knicks. Brooklyn guy, so I like it. You know, some people saying, oh, maybe we could have used that money towards keeping Mitchell Robinson. We'll see what happens with Robinson. Will he stay? Will he go to a place where he's guaranteed a starting spot? We don't know yet. So all that remains up in the air. But I thought, given the circumstances, I thought the Knicks did well. The Oklahoma City Thunder, guys, they were quite busy in this draft. And they had 3 picks, guys. 1 lottery, 1 just outside of the lottery, and then a second round pick. With their 12th pick that they got from the LA Clippers, this is the last pick of that Paul George trade. So that trade is finally over and done with. And they draft Ade Mara out of the University of Michigan, a junior, and he's 7'3", guys. So I'm saying right off the top, he's a Wemby stopper. And the fact that he fell to 12, absolutely, I could believe it. But he falls right to OKC. Like I said, the final piece of that Paul George trade, a rim protector with great hands. So listen, you're going to need length to go against a Wemby. And if this guy can fit the bill, that goes a long way for OKC. Now, remember, the Thunder were eliminated by the San Antonio Spurs, largely because you didn't have an answer for Wemby, pretty much. So this goes a long way in preventing that from happening this coming season. He reminds you of a Zach Edey, but more nimble. So, again, I thought this was a great pick for the Thunder. And then at 16, a pick they got a number of avenues. Bennett Sturts out of Iowa, a senior guard, 6'3", 190 pounds, a combo guard, a winner, and a leader. He'll be a value asset. And then also two guys, they lost a couple of vital bench pieces via trade. They traded out Aaron Wiggins, sent him to the Atlanta Hawks. And then just today, they traded Isaiah Joe and sent him to Detroit. Both of those for a couple of second rounders. So, remember, they had a deep bench as it was, so they could spare a piece or two. And in doing so, they gained some more draft capital. So, Sam Presti out there playing chess. And Bennett Sturts, he reminds you of a Landry Shamet, actually. Or even more so, a Andrew Nembhard. That's the kind of guard he can be for them. And then in the second round at the 41st pick, again, coming through a number of different avenues, they draft Ortega Owen out of Kentucky, guys. He's a guard, 6'4", a senior. And he's a 3-and-D guy. This is the type of pick that a Sam Presti does. He'll take a gamble. This is his MO. And he reminds you of a guy like a Josh Okogie. So take with that what you will. And these guys will be joining Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, hopefully a healthy Jalen Williams. That's the nucleus for that ball club. Mark Daigneault, he's a master at using his bench and all those sort of things. I think he'll get these young guys up to speed in no time. So there you go. All right, let's continue. The Orlando Magic. They only had the one pick in the second round at pick 51, and they take Isaiah Nelson out of Southern Florida, a senior, a forward at 6'8", 218 pounds. He's a post player, guys, a banger with great athleticism. So you add him to that front court over there, Paulo Banchero, Franz Wagner. He reminds you of a Kenneth Faried. Kenneth Faried was a relentless guy on the boards. I never understood why he didn't have a longer career in the league. He's a guy who crashes the boards. Did have the outside shot, but, he could finish around the rim and those sort of things. Wasn't all that versatile, but, these type of guys you still need in the league. So, yeah, I understand that, but what can you do? So, like I said, he'll join Paulo, Franz, Jalen Suggs, and those guys there for Orlando. And Orlando has a new coach, by the way, Sean Sweeney. So he'll be the head coach over there. All right, guys, so let us continue on. The Philadelphia 76ers. Now, they had one pick in the draft, guys. A first rounder, actually. One that they got from Houston via OKC. And with that pick, they take a LeBaron Phelan Jr. out of the University of Alabama, a sophomore guard, 6'3". He's a combo guard, needs to bulk up, but he has cat-like quickness. He reminds you of a Rod Strickland. And he's actually a Jared McCain clone. Remember, they had him at one time, foolishly gave him away to the Oklahoma City Thunder. So you never really replace that sort of guy on your bench. So Phelan Jr., I think he'll be a guy in the rotation in due time. So He'll be joining Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, BJ Edgecombe, who had a fine rookie season for them. So he joins those guys there. All right, so let us continue. The Phoenix Suns, they had one pick. They did have a second rounder, but the Knicks scooped that up from them. And they had the very last pick in the first round that they got a number of different ways, and they use it on Koa Pete out of the University of Arizona, a forward, a guy who actually has NFL lineage. His father played in the NFL. He reminds you of a Thaddeus Young who played many years in this league with Chicago, with Philly, and a number of other places. So he'll be a guy amongst those front court guys over there, guys like Dylan Brooks, guys like Mark Williams, who, oh, by the way, just today he resigned. 3-year deal, $38 million. So there you go there. And also joining Devin Booker and Jalen Green as well. So there you go there. Portland Trailblazers had no picks, so no need to delve any further as far as they go. The San Antonio Spurs, your Western Conference champs, they were quite busy in this draft. They had 4 picks, 2 in the first round, 2 in the second round. And check out what they did, guys. At pick 20 that they got via the Atlanta Hawks, that was, I believe that was part of the DeJounte Murray deal. And they get Jaden Quaintance out of the University of Kentucky, a sophomore. He's a big 6'9", 253 pounds. But he was a reach at this point in the draft, guys, given his injury history. He has a history of knee issues with his knee. But when healthy, he's probably the best defensive player in this draft, guys. He has a 7'5" wingspan, guys. So when I did my wrap up of the finals, I said that the problem with San Antonio was you had Wemby in there, but he was hanging around the key and all that sort of stuff. You didn't have a big on the inside to get the rebounds. And I actually had to spell it out for a guy on social media. If you had a traditional 4 playing next to Wemby, I don't think OG Anunoby gets that tip in. I'm saying this as a Knicks fan. If they had a traditional power forward in there, I don't think OG gets that tip in. I'm just saying. So, hey, it worked out in my team's favor, so I'm ecstatic about it. But being a realist, that doesn't happen if you got a power forward in there. And this kid reminds you of Robert Williams III, another guy, a big who's an excellent defensive player. Only problem, injury history. So he reminds you of that. And then if healthy, he will remind you of a Kevon Looney. And then at 26, not to be outdone, they get this pick from the Denver Nuggets, and they picked Taris Reed, a center out of UConn, guys. A senior, 6'10", 264 pounds. Impressive big with a relentless motor. He's a throwback player, guys. That's the kind of guy he is. So now you added bulk upon bulk to help out Wemby, because they knew they needed more bigs. You know, Luke Cornett, he's good in a pinch, but he shouldn't be your main backup center. So, yeah, so I think these guys here will go a long way in helping Wemby. So he reminds you of a Mason Plumlee in his prime, where he was a better player. And if you want to go way, way back, Michael Cage, a guy who was a walking double-double, if you will. So that was the first rounders. In the second round, that they got via Portland through the Pelicans, they get Jacoby Gillespie, a guard, 6 feet tall, senior. He has a great feel for the game, a spark plug, and he's a guy who fits the rotation. He'll be another guard within that rotation there for the Spurs. He reminds you of a Jamal Sheed, who's now playing with the Toronto Raptors as their backup point. So that's the kind of game this guy got. And they got him with the 42nd pick, and then 2 picks later at 44 that they got from Miami via the Indiana Pacers. And they choose Malik Brown, a forward out of Duke, senior, 6'8" guy. Could carve out a role, especially with the young man I mentioned at the 20th pick, Jaden Quaintance, with him, because, again, he's got the knee issue there. He may not be ready for the season. So Malik Brown can carve out a role for himself if Quaintance isn't ready. And this is a guy who can defend all 5 positions. He reminds you of Jarred Vanderbilt, the forward with the Lakers. That's the kind of defender he can be on the next level. So I thought they did pretty well for themselves, but you saw they addressed the need. They needed bigs, and I think they addressed that very much so in this draft. And they'll be joining Wemby, as I said, Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox, Dylan Harper, and those guys there. Just a few more teams, and then we're done, guys. The Sacramento Kings. Now, they had a first-round pick, actually 2 first-round picks, and then a second-rounder. At pick 7, a guy that fell right into their lap, Darius Acuff Jr., the guard out of Arkansas that everybody's in love with. Again, he fell right to him at 7. 3-level scorer and creator. His defense needs attention for what it's worth, but this guy is a star in the making. He reminds you of a Damian Lillard, of a Stephon Marbury, or a Jamal Murray. That's the kind of star potential this kid has. So, again, going to an optimum situation here where the role is wide open for him. And then at the 29th pick, guys, a pick they got from the Spurs via the Hawks, Alex Karaban, the forward out of UConn. He's a senior, 6'7". He's a winner, guys. He's the winningest player coming out of the UConn program. He's 24 years old, guys, so he's got some years on him. Not explosive. He's more of a cerebral player, a player that, plays by feel more than physicality. He reminds you of Sam Hauser of the Boston Celtics. That's the kind of game he has, guys. So I think he fits the rotation over there. And then at the 45th pick in the second round, that they got a number of different avenues. Emmanuel Sharp, a guard out of the University of Houston, 6'3", combo guard who can score, a hard worker, and he reminds you of a Seth Curry, not a Steph, a Seth Curry, which he's carved out a nice little career for himself in the league, all things considered. And he'll be joining the likes of a Domantas Sabonis, DeMar DeRozan, provided he stays, possibly a Zach LaVine if he doesn't move on to greener pastures as well. So I thought Sacramento did okay in this draft. The Toronto Raptors. Now, they are the team that each of their picks are their original picks, so no player movement as far as the Raptors go. At the 19th pick, they take Alan Graves, a forward out of Santa Clara, a freshman, 6'8", 226 pounds. A pick that everybody raised the eyebrow over. They thought they should have went with a big. Harris Reed was still on the board. Even if you wanted the kid Quaintness that I talked about, he was still on the board. But they go and get a wing. He is a wing, though, with point guard skills. That falls in line with a Scotty Barnes, a forward with point guard skills. And the athleticism, it's not quite there with him. So he reminds you of a Kyle Anderson. So it seemed like a redundant pick at this point. I thought they should have went with size. And then at pick number 50, they get Jaden Bradley, a guard out of Arizona, senior, 6'3", a combo guard. But the question is, can he be a lead guard at the next level? That's the question. But he is a trusted leader within his locker room, so can he bring that to the league? We'll see. And he reminds you of a Bones Highland, guys. So there you go there. So these young players join Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, another wing player, RJ Barrett, another wing player, Emmanuel Quickly, Grady Dick, another wing player, Colin Murray Boyles, a forward, and then Jakob Poulter. So Toronto, I think, could have did better, all things considered. The Utah Jazz, they only had the one pick, and that was the second pick in the draft, and they took Darren Peterson, the guard out of Kansas, 6'5". He's a scorer with huge upside, guys, a character guy. There are some concerns about his availability. You know, a lot was made of him axing out of the game, him having cramps and all that sort of stuff. I'm one who is willing to give the kid the benefit of the doubt. I don't believe when he gets to the league, you'll see a lot of that. So now he can hire himself a trainer, he can get a nutritionist and all these sort of things. I think it's just a matter of probably dehydration. It could be that. I'm not putting too much stock into the stuff that was being made and blown out of proportion by the Stephen A's of the world and others. I'm willing to give the kid a break and see what he does as a pro. That's just me. So I could be off base with this, but you know, he knows the whispers. He knows what's being said about him. So I'm willing to give the kid a break. So that's just me. And he joins Jaren Jackson Jr. over there. Remember, he came over mid-season trade. Keontae George, who I thought was having a most improved player type season. Ace Bailey, who they got last year, he started to come on towards the end of the season. So he comes to a nice situation there. Now, he wanted to be the number one pick. I think this situation here might be better for him as opposed to going to Washington. We'll see what happens there, but Darren Peterson, the lights are on you now, kid. You got to go in there and show and prove, and I'm confident he'll be able to do that. And then the last team I'll talk about, the Washington Wizards. Of course, they had the number one pick in the draft. Wisely took A.J. DeMontis, the forward out of BYU, freshman, 6'9", 217 pounds. Like I said, 3-level scorer, improved three-point shooting. You like that. Led the nation in scoring as a freshman, something that's rarely done. He's a perfect fit for that squad. He's of Congolese and Jamaican roots. He reminds you of a Tracy McGrady, that type of scoring machine mentality. A shorter, if you will. But I thought this was the no-brainer pick. I understand, I get it. Some people are saying maybe the Aaron Peterson, maybe Cameron Boozer, but this to me is the safer pick. I think he'll come in, and coming into the door, I think he could be a 20 point a game guy walking in the door. And then in the second round at pick 46, they get Felix Okpara, a center out of Tennessee, 6'10", 237 pounds, a senior. He's a lob threat. He's a rim protector. Just needs to add a bit more strength, but I think he's a perfect backup big for them. Remember, you have a Anthony Davis in the fold, so if you can have as much bigs on hand in case he goes down, you need that. You have Alex Sarr there also, who dealt with some injuries too last season. So to have a Okpara here, you develop him, and you're doing okay. He reminds you of a Moses Bati, the center out of the Charlotte Hornets. So that's who he reminds you of. So Washington did well for themselves. And then remember, too, Trae Young, he opted out of his player option, but they did give him a contract extension, 4 years, $212 million. So look like he's a building block for the Washington Wizards. So we'll see what happens there. But can things turn around in the capital city there in DC? We'll see what happens. So there you go. All right, guys. I thank you for listening as always. Before I do my call to action, guys, I was thinking about that fan reaction show I did, which, again, kudos to Leah B of In the Mix with Leah B for coming through. And then Chris Ward Jr., impressive young man, longtime Knicks fan, coming on that show. I think what I'm going to end up doing is I'm just going to make it a series where I do these episodes with Knicks fans that I know. So I got a few people lined up as far as that goes. I'll do that over the course of the summer. I'm trying to line something up for the next couple of weeks, and hopefully I'll get these ladies to come on. But I'll be doing those episodes. I want to get to the WNBA. A lot is happening there that I want to address, because you got these Johnny come latelys who they just run off at the mouth. So I want to set things straight as far as that goes. And then you got free agency period coming up in the NBA. So a lot's going to be happening within the next few weeks, and I'll be here to be on top of all of that. So there you go. All things basketball with gd.com is the website. There you find my clips, my full episodes. Guys, I'm on Substack. I have my Substack going. It should be GD's Substack. I think that's what I have it under. So you can find me there. YouTube page. I have my YouTube channel there as well. Podcast platforms. I'm on all of those. You know the drill. 5 stars, wherever you see me at. 5 stars. Good reviews, guys. And be a supporter of this show, guys. I got 3 buttons on my website where you can do so. PayPal, buy me a coffee, Spotify, donate. In the scroll, I always have there my Cash App, $GD Again, $GD And then in terms of social media, Instagram, TikTok, some Blue Sky, some Facebook, and some Threads as well. I got to start mentioning Threads because I'm putting my stuff on Threads now. So those are the only 5 I mess with on the regular. So there you go. Thank you for listening. As always, we will talk soon. Take care.